Hello, and welcome back to Breakfast Week. Yesterday we worked on pancakes, and today we're going to make waffles. Now, the pancakes and the waffles pretty much have the same ingredients. I'm going to call for eggs, buttermilk, flour, baking powder, baking soda, and salt. Those were all of the ingredients that were in the pancakes yesterday. The big difference is that yesterday's for pancakes, I was allowed to use melted shortening or liquid salad oil, which I did. But for the waffles, you use the shortening as a solid. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I'm going to need is 2 eggs. And your waffle recipe is usually going to be a little bit more, have more ingredients in it total than, say, the pancakes, because waffles are bigger, so they need more items in there. And then it doesn't say to do anything except lightly beat the eggs. So I'm going to pull out my handy-dandy little balloon whisk, as we well know is lovely for beating eggs. And again, we want to just give it a few whisks, get a little air in there, make sure that the yolks and the whites are fully incorporated. That's a lovely word for you guys. It's incorporated, and it means it's all blended well together so that you can't separate the white from the yolk. So we've got that pretty much done. Go ahead and set my whisk aside. And now I need 2 cups of buttermilk. And that would be me running away to get my liquid buttermilk measure because I forgot to pull it out. Sorry, guys. Okay, so we're going to get our 2 cups of buttermilk here. And since I happen to have the store-bought one left over from the pancakes yesterday, that's what I'm going to use. And as you can see from the dribbly-drabbly there, I've used up the last of that container. So anything I want with buttermilk for the rest of the week is going to have to either use my dry buttermilk and water, or I'm going to have to use my put acid in, which is vinegar or lemon juice, into milk, let it set for 15 minutes, and then create an adequate buttermilk substitute. But we're going to use up the last of this buttermilk here, which I'm kind of glad for because it's just taking up space in my fridge because, again, buttermilk's not good for anything except baking. Don't drink this stuff. It tastes nasty. All right, so we got that. We're going to use our 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and you're going to get tired of me saying this, but always make sure you stir your flour till it is light and fluffy and has some loft to it. And when you stir it, you shouldn't be feeling any firm flour resistance. Then you're going to take your cup and, again, plunge it down below the level of the cup measure. And so I don't know if you, oh dear. So anyhow, you can see this. You're going to have to slide it back, move it forward, and then put it in there just a second. And I just want to make sure that we are visually here. Okay, I know that it tapes when I can't see it, but it bothers me. I'm always worried that I'll be doing this spiel for myself, and then I'm going to be there, and it's not going to be there. So anyhow, my flour didn't get all the way to the edge of the cup, so I'm just going to sort of scrape it towards it and then scrape it away and just sort of level it out that way. And now I've got my 2 cups of flour there, all nice and lovely measured. I'm going to need my 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And again, baking powder, baking soda, not the same thing. Never, ever, ever substitute one for the other. It will not have your recipes rise properly, and it's going to affect the taste because baking soda is kind of salty. So I've got my 2 teaspoons of baking powder, my 1 teaspoon of soda. Now, since these are both what they call leavening agents, they're going to make things rise, and I'm not really sure what the science is behind having both of each. And then I need a 1/2 cup of salt, and as always, I'm going to measure my salt away from my bowl since I don't want to oversalt anything. So I've got my nice lovely little salt there, got that mixed in there. And then I'm going to need 1/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons of shortening. And so I'm just going to dip my cup in there, rotate it around, and then I'm going to need to smooth it out on top. Give it a little push down there. Shortening tends to get air bubbles, and it may not always be solid in there, so always make sure that you push your shortening down into your measuring cup. And then we're going to take that out. And then it said 2 tablespoons. And I got to admit, when I'm cooking for myself, I just sort of eyeball it and just give it an extra hunk But since I'm cooking for you guys, I'll, be the perfect chef and measure properly. There's one, there's two. And again, you always want to rotate it while you're in there. Make sure there's not those air bubbles, and give it a good pack down there. And then clear off the edges there, because that's going to add to the shortening just a bit. And we don't want those extras. So I've got my shortening in there now. I'm going to measure that out. Now, yesterday when I made the pancakes, I was able to use my balloon whisk to mix everything, because the batter was very liquid. It didn't have anything chunky in there. Now, it is possible, because I've done it before, to make waffle batter and to spend your entire life beating that frosting into, or beating the shortening into the liquid, but that's not going to be the best choice here. So instead, I'm going to use a stick blender. You can always use a regular blender of any kind. But right now, I'm going to use the stick blender, so I'm just going to plug that in there. And I am going to disappear for a second and plug this into a charger, because it keeps going to 0. Sorry about that, guys. My camera keeps turning off, and hopefully that we're actually seeing what we're doing here. It looks like we're still on. So anyhow, I'm talking about a stick blender. Now, the mixing bowl that I use has a little spatter lid on it, so when I turn it on, it's not going to make a mess everywhere. At least that's the hope. So let's just go ahead and get this started. You'll notice I'm swirling it around as we go, so that I can make sure I get all of the batter everywhere. Give it a good lift so it's not getting stuck on the bottom. And this batter is really, really thick because of the shortening. The shortening doesn't want to get cut up into tiny little pieces. It's very nice. Gee, I don't know why. And it's going to take a few minutes, guys, because I can still see shortening lumps. But what I want to do right now is I want to clear off the lumps that are collecting on the outside of the beater here, simply because if that's not incorporated into the batter, it's going to change the proportion of wet to dry ingredients. So I'm just going to clean that off there, and then after that it should get a little softer and a little smushier, and it should just keep blending in. So always make sure that you scrape and clean the sides of your bowls and your mixers as you're going. And look at how much effort it's taking this machine to do it. Can you imagine if I was trying to do this by hand? Now, I've done it by hand before. I think one of my kids was sleeping or something, and I didn't want to make the noise. But it was too much effort. So if they're sleeping, oh well, I'm making the noise, because this is a lot of effort. Now, my batter is getting a lot smoother. I'm not seeing as many chunks in there. It's looking a lot smoother. So we're just going to do this another minute or two. And what I'm doing is I'm lifting the bottom to make sure that there is no shortening clumps, and I can still see them there. So let's just keep blending a little more. If you have a hand mixer, you know, with the two little beaters that go together, it goes a lot faster because they have a lot more power. If you have a stand mixer and you want to make the waffle dough in there, that's also a good thing. I just wanted to do this one here because, you know, it's small, it's tiny, it fits in front of the camera. But boy, I had forgotten how long it takes to do this. Okay, well, we're looking fairly mixed up. The shortening isn't 100% incorporated into the batter, but I think it'll be okay. And if not, well, I'll eat, you know, icky waffles for breakfast because this is going to be my breakfast. And again, I'm cleaning off my batter here because I can eat the batter or I can throw away the batter. And frankly, eating it is much tastier than tossing it in the trash can. Unless it's bad batter, of course, in which case throw it out. So anyhow, we've got this all clean here, or most of it. Taking all the batter out of there. And I don't know if you've noticed in the background, I got a little machine back here. That's my waffle maker. It's been preheating this whole time. Waffles really need to be cooked hot, and you have to have a waffle maker. I've never seen actually anything that you can put on the stove just like as a waffle pan or something. I've always seen them as electric waffle irons, and I don't know if they actually make a waffle mold that you can just pour into and work on there. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure I unplug my electronics. I'm just always funny that way. I hate to go on vacation and come back and discover, oh look, I left the waffle iron plugged in and now I don't have a house. So I always make sure I unplug everything, and I'm going to scrape the excess batter off here so I don't make a mess. And I'm going to make sure I thoroughly scrape the sides here. I've got a little bit of dry powder because the machine didn't get it all, and I just want to make sure that it's all incorporated, and I can feel a little bit on the bottom there. Oops. Oops. There's a little bit of dry stuff there. And then since I've just scraped dry powder into the batter, I'm just going to, again, give it a little stir here. Make sure everything is, what's that word we learned, fully incorporated, which means completely and totally blended. Okay, well, that looks like I actually have batter now, and I'm ready to go. So I'm going to open up my waffle iron. I don't know if you can see it there. It's all nice and steamy. And then I am going to make sure I coat a little bit of spray oil. If you don't have spray oil and you want to put just a little bit of real oil in there and smush it around with a basting brush, that's fine. And then this one here, I'm just going to pour into the middle until it gets about 3/4 full. Why? Why am I not going to fill it all the way up? Because the batter is going to spread out when I close the lid. And there I've closed the lid. And it's better to make a waffle that's not quite to the edges of the machine rather than put so much dough that it comes on out to the edges, because it makes a mess. Gets the waffle machine icky, it's hard to do. And that's pretty much it. So basically, we made a batter, we beat our eggs, added our buttermilk and everything else in there. Because of the shortening, we had to use an electronic mixer instead of a hand mixer. And then we're going to put the batter in here. Now it's going to take 5 to 6 minutes for this waffle to cook. So if you are planning on doing waffles for a breakfast for somebody and you want lots of waffles, the trick to this is to have your oven on warm. And don't put any plates on it. Just put the waffles directly onto the oven rack, assuming it's clean enough for food. Sometimes mine gets a little icky with, spilled pie juice and stuff. But anyhow, you're going to put the waffles, oven on warm, put the waffles, throw them in the oven. Don't stack them one on top of each other, because when they stack like that, they create a little steam, and then they get soggy. We want those nice crisp edges. Now I'm going to open up my waffle, which is something you should not do, but I'm doing this for cooking demonstration purposes. So let me change my waffle iron here so you can see it. And when you open it up, as you can see, my waffle spread all the way to the edges. But if I open it all the way up, partly through the cooking, my dough is actually going to split in half. The cooked dough is going to stick to the outsides of the waffle edges, and it's going to make a mess. So I'm going to go ahead and stop us here, and hopefully this machine will pick it up when it's fully cooked. We'll see.